Hello, my creative mystic friend. I'm Deepa Lou, and I'm the creative mystic. And I ring this bell to awaken you to your joy, to your inner self. That's the divine presence. So today, Yogananda volunteered to give a message, and I asked him before we got on about what he wanted to talk about, and he said he really wanted to talk about joy, about how to find uh, joy in life. And again, basically, he wants to help you find your joy. If you're not having it, then it's again because he's saying to me that, we all originally come in joyful, that the only reason why we don't continue to feel the joyful feeling, the joyful energy is because it gets kind of covered up by all of our programming and our self definitions. But he's wanted me to actually start telling you a little bit about Yogananda himself. I don't know if you've ever read Autobiography of a Yogi. It's a great book. I've read it several times. He's a yogi that came to America to help bring East and West together, like basically to see all the oneness of all different spiritual paths. He came with that, you know, um, specific mission, purpose in his life. It's one of the reasons why I am so um, clear that my purpose, my holy calling, is to help you step into your purpose, your holy calling, to do what's true in your heart, to get in touch with that truth, because it's the thing I saw representative in Yogananda's life is that he was really like this joyful, fun Swami, master. Yogananda was a master. He had several disciples, and he would be serious when he needed to be, but he really, like would be like a big kid sometimes. He'd be spitting spitballs. I didn't meet him, but you read the stories and how he would spit spitballs and different things at people to have joy and fun into um, spirituality, into everyday life, and that it's really important. And that's what I love about Yogananda is he, was encompassing like all the important factors, not just the seriousness of spirituality, but the fun, the joyful part that, the parts that you have to deal with on the material plane. And so he wants to share with you about joy. I don't know exactly what he's going to talk about. We're going to tune into him there in a minute, but he wanted me to share like how he kind of represented the fact that you can be joyful and grow spiritually. You can be joyful and, grow your business. You can be joyful and, take care of, all the responsibilities and logical, practical things you have to do in the world and still follow what's true in your heart. And so he wanted me to talk about that today with you. I'm going to tune in to see exactly what the message is. I always ask him before I get on with you, like, what's the topic, Yogananda? What do you, or whatever spirit guide I'm talking to, I should say, what is it that you're going to talk about so I can at least introduce the topic? And so if you've been suffering from lack of joy, and I think he wanted me to use the word how to find joy in life again, because, I think it's something that sometimes people have a trauma or a tragedy that takes them out of the joy. Maybe you had someone die where you had grief. You have grief, and how do you get back to finding that joy? So we're going to tune in to him. I could be wrong, but we're going to tune in to find out what it is he wants to talk about. Okay. So, one of the things I always like to remind you is if you feel like you resonate with this spirit guide portal of Yogananda, feel free to get your own. I make reproductions and I pray and bless them. They're on my website, deepalu.com. Feel free to go look and check it out. If you're listening to this and not watching it on video, I'm going to describe Yogananda the best I can. And if you know what he looks like, go ahead and just envision him in your mind. And if you're actually going to be seeing the video, feel free to gaze into his image, because I find that often when people gaze into his image or into any of the spirit guide portals that I've created, they get their own intuitive message. They get their own blessings. I've seen it when I've done in-person events where people have felt blessed by the portal, that they like something they've struggled with in their life. All of a sudden they feel like it's been, like they've had a transformation where they can move forward on it when maybe they couldn't before. So I always recommend, because the portal's been blessed with the energy and power of whatever they came in with. So Yogananda, when I created him, wanted me to infuse this portal with his energy, with his power, his energy, and part of his energy was joy. So I really want you to kind of look at it and gaze into it if you've seen the video. Okay, so let me do a prayer. I'm going to do it silently, um, and then you can just do your own prayer silently too. So Yogananda is coming to me and telling me that if you are not feeling joyful at the moment, the first thing you have to do is actually accept where you are completely. So if you're feeling just kind of blah, accept that you're feeling blah. If you're depressed, accept that you're depressed. If you're having grief because somebody's died, accept that you're having grief. And he's saying that that's the first step in finding your joy. He says part of finding your joy is trusting that what you're feeling is what you need to feel at the moment. Now, he's not saying to stay in that grief or to stay in that depression or to stay in that, but he's saying the reason why people stay into these, uh, what he calls lower energies, of of depression or blindness, where you're kind of apathetic, is because you're actually resisting some story or emotion that you have underneath it. Now, when he talks about story, he means some belief, something that you're telling yourself. You're not aware of that story, and he's wanting me to give an example. Like your story could be something like, um, "You're not good at anything. You're not good enough. You don't believe in this." It could be a story about um, how life is, like with your family. One of my stories with my family was that they don't value me like they value the rest of my, like my siblings, my other brothers. That was one of my stories. And it's something I had to work on and admit that that was going on. And I grew up for years not knowing that I even had that story, just seeing things that would happen that would show me that they valued my brothers more than me. And it was a point of place where I would resist it, get frustrated, but never really accept that that's what was going on. And so, do you have that kind of story? Something, it may not be with your family, it could be out in life, like at business. Business, maybe the story is, there's a glass ceiling for women, if you're a woman listening to this. Um, it could be anything that you believe there's a story behind it, and so you want to be aware of what that story is, and you want to trust yourself. Yogananda is saying that this is something that you need to heal and go through. And he says that what happens, why people lose their joy, is they try to muscle through it. They try to like pretend that they're not having it, or, and so instead of acknowledging it, they ignore it, they avoid it, they pretend like that's not even there. And that persists. And eventually, as it goes on longer and longer and longer, the more longer you're on the planet, you lose more and more and more of your joy. And so he's saying the first step in finding your joy in life again is to acknowledge what you're feeling emotionally. Understand the story that's behind it. Okay, those are the first two steps. And then acknowledge that it's just a story. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true. And now, what he's saying is that just because you have evidence in life doesn't mean it's a spiritual truth, and doesn't mean it's a truth about you. It just means it's a belief that created this in your life, and that it's time to let it go so you can find your joy again. Because he says, you came into this world joyful. you may not remember it. People talk about, oh, baby comes in and the baby cries. Well, they cries because they spank the baby often to get it to breathe. The baby cries sometimes because it is probably a shock to the body of coming from in this little safe womb out into this open air. And so, but at that time period, that's the only expression the baby knows, is to make noises in the form of crying. And so, but he says, ultimately, when you are connected to the divine, when you are awake in that energy, when you are connected, and that's the whole reason why these portals are so important, he's telling me to tell you, is that you have some kind of portal for yourself. And a portal is a doorway to your connection with higher power, whether it be Yogananda, whether it be the angels, whether it be Mother Mary, whatever, that form is that you resonate with. It's important that you have some physical representation that is a doorway for you, that helps remind you, that helps you connect, that helps you feel their energy. Because feeling their energy, their consciousness, is so important in finding your joy again. See, because you're not going to find your joy, because joy is not the same as happiness. Happiness is like something great happens on the physical plane and you're like, woohoo, like you win the lottery, woohoo, people jump up and down, they're so excited, or, somebody brings you someplace you've always wanted to go and you're like, yay, but it's because of that event. And when that event is over, the happiness can fade. And that's the thing about, in my Buddhist practice, they talked about happiness because it's a word people relate to, but they would talk about eternal happiness. In other words, that's joy. Joy is eternal. It does not have to do with what necessarily that you've gotten in the world from other people or from some other thing or place, okay? But joy is about an experience that you feel inwardly. So he's wanting me to, Yogananda wants me to share about how, like, if I have a time period where I'm not painting for a while because I'm doing more of the practical, logical things that need to be done in my business, I don't realize my joy's diminishing. And then I'll go and I'll paint, and when I paint, I'm always painting a spirit guide portal, some like spiritual, mystical experience that I'm having as I'm creating it. And, I'm using the creative power of whatever that spirit guide is. I actually pray to that spirit guide to be infused into, the portal. And after I do that, I'll wake up the next day and I'm like laying in bed and I'll be like, ah. I can feel the joy in my heart. I can feel it. And then I know, okay, I want to keep painting. And then the human condition makes it so life gets busy and sometimes I stop. Now, right now, I'm doing this Mother Mary challenge, painting challenge, where I'm creating these 54 versions. And it's been, like, it's my focus. All my focus, my attention goes on that. And I'm like, that's where my energy is flowing. But if you've lost your joy, you've got to first admit, I'm repeating it so you can remember it, admit, acknowledge where you are emotionally, you know, understand the story that's behind it, and accept it. Okay. And then 3, start to realize that you can change it. Okay. Because just because you came in with that programming, that story, doesn't mean you're stuck with it. And so Yogananda wants you to get into the energy of, possibility, this can be changed. And so he's telling you that in order to bring joy back into your life, you have to start trusting, one, your process. Okay. But your process is to be moving. It's a process. Okay. Process is not staying stuck in one place. It's like, okay, I need to do this, and then I need to do this, and I need to do this. So that's a process. You take one step, and then there's another step, and then another step. Now, grieving, they talk about grieving. There's I think 5 stages of grieving, and I'm not a grief expert, but you have to go through that process before the grief is completely done, worked through you. And so you've got to be willing to go through that process. And so he's saying, trust your process, accept that there's a process, and that it can be gone through with this energy of like, this is the process. This is how I find my joy again. And maybe you're not joyful in that moment because you have to go through this process, but at the end of the process, you're going to start to feel that joy again. So there's a process in every wound, belief we have, emotional hurt or trauma, there's a process you want to go through, and you have to accept where you are emotionally in that to be able to find that joy in your life again. And so Yogananda is telling me that he wants you to start to like check in with yourself daily about like, do you feel joyful? Because what he says that happens for most people is they don't even realize they're not feeling the joy. They like wake up, are kind of doing everything they need to do, the have tos, the shoulds, and they forget to do what brings them joy. So one of the things, if you're a creative mystic, if you're listening to this, the thing that can bring you joy is creativity. Now, mine is painting art. What's yours? What do you love to do that's creative, that's making something, that's painting something, that's drawing something, that maybe your creative process is baking or cooking? It doesn't have to be what they call necessarily art, because everything to me is a form of art. Cooking a fabulous, beautiful meal is art, but they wouldn't call that art by art definition. So you want to start looking at your life as like, what are the things I love to create that actually bring me joy? Because when you do something you love, it sparks your joy. And you want to start thinking about that. So Yogananda is saying that really look at your life and check in with, what am I going to do today that I love doing or that brings me joy? You can ask the question either way, but Yogananda is asking yourself, if you want to find your joy again, you want to start asking yourself that. And he says, if an answer doesn't come to you because like maybe you're feeling some depression or grief, he's saying to look back at when you were little and reflect back on what it was that made you joyful when you were young, because that can bring your joy. So like for me, for instance, I loved little like games and things like that. And so like if you watched my last episode, you saw me shooting the little balls into the hat, that kind of thing. Even though it's like mundane and has no meaning necessary to anybody, it's like, woohoo, brings the joy in my heart. So Yogananda is asking whatever that is, if it's like going out in nature brings my joy. So I go out in nature, when I can like fit it in my schedule. You know, ride my bike brings me joy. Like I can get on a bike and all of a sudden my whole demeanor, I start smiling. And it doesn't have to be in any necessarily great place. I just love riding a bike. So Yogananda wants you to like think back when you were young. What if you cannot touch it now in the present time? What was it when you were young that brought you joy? And he wants you to, if it's even just for 5 minutes, do that thing that brings you joy. And one of the things Yogananda is saying that's really important is to let your inner child out. He says it's so important. We think our inner child, like when you get to a certain age, it should go away. And he's saying that squishes your joy. He says your inner child, and that's why he says he used to go around and do little spitball things and stuff for fun, letting his inner child out. He says that inner child knows how to be joyful. So he says you want to connect back with the inner child. What did your inner child love to do? What did it laugh about and giggle about? And you want to do those things. So he's saying, wants me to share with you, like sometimes like something makes me joyful and I'll be like dancing with it, like I love to like dance, and I don't even have to dance to music, like I could just let like be dancing. And he's saying, so if you have something like that, he says you want to be letting yourself connect back with it, because he says feeling the joy again, finding your joy in life again, is about trusting yourself, trusting your process, but also allowing yourself to act on it. Like some people will go, yeah, I know what it is I'm going to do, but they don't allow themselves to act on it. And that just keeps squishing and squishing and squishing their joy. And so you have to allow yourself to act on it, even if it's only 5 minutes a day. So Yogananda really wants you to allow yourself to connect back with that joy and trust the process. So let me check back to see if he has anything else to say. The last thing he's saying is he wants you to commit to joy. If you want joy in your life, you have to commit to that you're going to have it in your life. You want to commit to that, yes, I can take every event in my life and make it a joyful experience. And what he means like about that, he doesn't mean pretend that you feel joyful when you don't. What he's meaning by that is that you will find joy in the process of what you're learning from that experience. Because he said every experience that's happening in your life is actually there to help bring you closer to what's true in your heart. He's saying that, what brings you joy, like joy that's going to stay with you, is when you know what's true in your heart and you act on it every day. You are so in touch that you don't question it. You don't, belabor what you're doing. You just know this is the truth and I'm acting on it. This is my truth and I'm acting on it. He says that if you can do that, you will be joyful every day in your life, because what you're meant here to do is to know the truth in your heart and act on it. In fact, he's saying this, and this is the very thing I do for my coaching clients is, I'm always trying to help them do what's true in their heart. And and this is me talking here for a minute. Um, one of the things I've found in life is the whole reason why we don't know what's true in our heart is we've been programmed to do what's practical, responsible, logical, what we can afford. And when we put those parameters around everything, it squishes all of our joy. Now I'm not telling you to go out and be irresponsible or not, or charge up your credit cards. What I'm telling you though is that you have to not use those parameters because it squishes, to be aware enough to go, what's my truth? So that you can then start to go, maybe I can't act on it right this moment, but I can act on it like tomorrow or next week or maybe next month, because I know this is my truth. And when I act on my true heart's desire, that's going to bring me joy. That's going to bring me back to my joy in life again. So Yogananda was wanting me to share that with you, even though it's my story, me sharing that with you. But, I'd love to hear your comments and shares. If you find this helpful, please share it with somebody else. I'd love to have other people get the benefit of Yogananda's guidance. If you're ready to find some support to stepping into knowing what your true heart's desire is and being able to act on it, please feel free to take advantage of my gift of a next step connection call to see if we're a fit and if it's a fit for you. You just go to deepalu.com/gift. And if you're wanting to have your own connection with the Yogananda Spirit Guide Portal, feel free to go to my website and look at the link below. I pray and bless every G clay that goes out the door from here, because my whole one of my whole purposes is to create these blessings in the world, and I want to bless you with each of these spirit guides that come to me, that they bless you with helping you move forward in your true heart's desire, in your joy, so that you can actually find your joy in life again. So remember, greatness is within you. It's time to let it out. Have a miraculous day. Blessings.